Today we're here to talk about post-apocalyptic horror done right. This is definitely a series you do not want to miss out on. Be sure to stick around and come back after the intro. My name is Brad, and today I'm back with another book review for you guys. If you happen to be new to the channel, I read a lot of indie and small press horror, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi. So if any of that sounds like something you are interested in, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Check out some of the other content on the channel, and maybe you'll discover a book that you enjoy. If you happen to be coming back to the channel, thanks for coming back and sticking around. I really appreciate it. So for today's book review, we're actually talking about a volume 3 in a series, and we're going to be talking about Sleepwalking by Daniel Barnett. And this is part of his Nightmareland Chronicles series. I think it's supposed to be 12 volumes when it's all said and done. This one's volume 3. Obviously, I've already read volumes 1 and 2. They're back here, Nightfall and Lullaby. Sort of a brief recap, just sort of in general about what this series is about. It's post-apocalyptic, where in this world the sun has disappeared, darkness has fallen, hence the name Nightfall. We're not really sure why. It's very mysterious. There are hints and clues as to sort of what's going on, and as each book progresses, we get more and more little hints and clues, tidbits of information as to sort of the bigger picture of what's going on. So in book 1, the world goes dark. In book 2, there's this mysterious, very ominous lullaby that starts to play, basically out of anything that has either a screen or a speaker. Phones, televisions, radios, your iPod, any of that kind of stuff. This lullaby starts to play and causes you to fall asleep, puts you into this deep state of slumber and unrest. And this is a quote from the back of the book. And the sleeping don't rest easily. So the first 2 volumes in the series, Nightfall and Lullaby, they firmly grasped my attention and they lured me into this dark world that Barnett has created. I was excited to see what happens next. I was interested in the story. I'm fully on board with this series. I'm along for the ride, whether it's 10 volumes, 12 volumes, whatever it's going to be. I'm here. I need to know what this mystery is. I need to know how all this is going to culminate and end up. I need to know what's going to happen next. So in saying that, I've read 3 volumes right now, volume 3 being Sleepwalking, and I don't really know what else to say about these books, what other adjectives or descriptions I can throw out there to entice someone else to read these that I haven't already used for the first 2 books. So I sort of made a little checklist of things that, for me, these are things that would keep me interested in a story, keep me compelled to continue on reading. So intriguing premise, check. Interesting characters, check. Beautiful prose, check. Vivid imagery, check. Compelling narrative, check. It's checking each and every single box of things that I look for in a story to be excited about or interested in or compelled to continue on and read further. So the story this time around, it's pretty straightforward on the surface. We're following Marcos, who's the character we met at the end of volume 2, and Mariah, who's been here since the beginning. And they're heading into town to try to find some medicine or medical supplies that possibly hasn't been scavenged over already to help John. John's not doing the best right now. So we're trying to get him some medicine, get back to John, and help him out as best they can. It seems pretty straightforward on the surface, pretty simple, but there's a lot more to be encountered bubbling just beneath the surface. There's danger and grief and tragedy and love and compassion. All of these different emotions are at play that makes for a very compelling and fascinating story, more so than just this simple, straightforward narrative that it seems to be on the surface. And that's all I really want to say about the plot. You'll have to read it for yourself to find out what's going on, but there's deeper meanings and themes and elements going on than what just appears on surface level. I will say the ending, though, that ending, it has me hungry, it has me chomping at the bit to find out what's going to happen next. It's not a cliffhanger, but it sort of is at the same time. It definitely leaves you in a very interesting place as to what is going to happen at the beginning of the next book. This might be slightly spoilerish, but not really. I'm going to compare it to something else. The ending reminded me of the movie The Crazies that came out in 2010. mixed with a little bit of Jack Torrance from The Shining. I really love the ending. It was super intriguing and interesting, and really, like I said, has me chomping at the bit and hungry. My stomach's just grumbling to know what happens next. So one thing I can say about this series after reading Volume 3 that I haven't said before is I am loving the way that these books are subverting my expectations for what I think is going to happen. You know, in reading Book 1, you think John is going to be our main protagonist, that we're following his story all the way through. Something happens to him, sort of puts him in the back seat. And in Volume 2, we're following Mariah the whole time, which was great. We get to see that she's not just a side character. She has her own depth and emotions and things she's going through. It's a really great dive into her mind in Volume 2. At the end of Volume 2, we meet Marcos. And Marcos here in Volume 3, he really stole the show for me. I liked him a lot more than I thought he was going to be. And one thing that's really interesting about Marcos is he's a young boy. I think he's in middle school, so probably really early teenage years, maybe like 13 or so. I don't remember for sure. But he's a deaf character. So, you know, a deaf character in other books in this sort of post-apocalyptic type genre, he would be considered a liability. He would be considered a weakness in other stories, in lesser stories. You know, I can picture him on The Walking Dead being a liability to everybody. But that's definitely not the case here in this book whatsoever. Based on the circumstances of the world that we're in, where anything, you know, there's this lullaby playing, luring people to sleep. And once you go to sleep, you can't be woken up. You know, anything with a screen or a speaker can play this lullaby. So Marcos, you know, since he's deaf, he has this strength to him. And I like how that's twisted. You know, what would be considered possibly a flaw or a weakness, it's twisted on its head and doubled down that how important and crucial that part of him is to the story. You know, it's this strength that he has that maybe wasn't a strength before the darkness fell in this world. And it's not only the key to his survival, but the key to Mariah's survival and the key to possibly John's survival as well. So I love that subverting of expectations, that twist, and taking something that other people would be considered to say, you know, that's a weakness, that's a flaw, and turning it on its head and making it a really, you know, core strength of this character. Made for a really interesting and great character who, you know, I was way more compelled and involved and interested in his story and what's going on with him than I thought I was going to be. And I think it's because of that twist, turning that, you know, that weakness or flaw on its head and turning it into a really powerful strength. And I think that's a testament to Barnett's, you know, crafting this story and his writing style. It just was really, really well done. So I said before that I don't really like to compare one author to another. I like to let an author's work stand on its own. But in this instance, I have to make the comparison between Daniel Barnett and Stephen King. And I'm not even necessarily talking about the writing style. Barnett definitely has his own unique voice and style all to himself. I'm more so talking about the way that they are writing and crafting their characters, especially their villains. I'm talking about just the human villains, you know, not these supernatural type villains. Just these human villains, the way they are written, their flaws and quirks and characteristics really are bringing them to life. They feel like fully fledged real life people up on the page. And I think that's really where the comparison is coming in for me. You know, I don't really have the words to describe it. It's just this feeling that I get. The human villains that Stephen King creates, they have this certain vibe, this aura, this presence to them. And here in this series, Barnett, he's hitting all those same notes for me with his human villains. You know, there's this darkness and subtleness simmering just beneath the surface that the readers can feel. And Barnett is doing a great job of illuminating that just enough to make these characters interesting and scary, yet mysterious and unnerving all at the same time. You know, the best monsters are the ones that aren't fully revealed, that don't have the light fully shown on them. And that's what Barnett's doing here. He's giving us just enough to make them interesting and compelling and scary, but still leaving enough up to the imagination to, you know, make them even scarier than they might be. You know, the power of the imagination is the scariest thing. You know, what you don't see, what you don't know is lurking in the shadows, tends to be the scariest thing. And like I said, Barnett's doing a fantastic job just giving us enough sort of view and depth into the minds and the psyche of these villains to be really scared, and letting our imaginations sort of flesh the rest of that out. And that's sort of the comparison I'm trying to make. You know, the villains here feel fantastic. They're my favorite part of the series, or one of my favorite parts of the series so far, and they really are shining in this book more so than the other two. They're really starting to make their presence known. It's the two brothers that run the Love Shack here in this book. That's sort of the vibe and sort of essence is what I'm trying to describe here. Those two brothers definitely have that, you know, king vibe to them here in this book. So I guess after saying all that, it's the characters that are really starting to shine for me in this series. They're strong, yet they have weaknesses. They're scared, yet they're brave. They're flawed and they're imperfect. They feel like real people. They're characters that you can love and detest and be wary of, all sort of at the same time. They're full of these rich emotions that really bring an extra depth and layer to a story like this. You know, a rich narrative, you know, without great characters usually feels sort of hollow, like it's all window dressing. But that's not the case here. You know, in the Nightmareland Chronicles, we're getting the best of both worlds, this feast of both of these worlds. You know, these great characters and this rich narrative all in one package. So in closing, heartfelt and heartless, hopeful and dismal, Sleepwalking by Daniel Barnett explores a dark world full of nightmares, inhabited by those souls who still are a shining beacon of light, pushing back against the darkness, while the light of others has been extinguished as they fester and feed, allowing themselves to be consumed by it. Barnett has crafted a world and set this story up where the horrific and nightmarish possibilities are endless in this story, in this series going forward. I love the place we ended off at, and like I said, the possibilities really are endless for the horrific and nightmarish and scary things that could come. I can't wait for the next volume. I'm eagerly anticipating it. The next volume is called The Flashlighters, which again feels like Stephen King and a little bit of Stranger Things sort of mixed together. I love that title. That might be my favorite title of the series so far. I can't wait till that comes out. I think it comes out January 26th, I believe. But yeah, I'm eagerly anticipated and excited for that. But after all this rambling, I'm giving Sleepwalking by Daniel Barnett 4.5 stars, rounded up to 5 for Amazon and Goodreads. The series, it just keeps getting better and better, and like I said, I cannot wait to see what happens next. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, this has been my 4.5 star review of Sleepwalking by Daniel Barnett, Volume 3 in the Nightmareland Chronicles series. But thank you all for spending your time with me today. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.